Hi everyone, it's Jessica Dibzinski from the Paper Heart. I'm excited to be crafting today as part of the Craft IQ challenge for the month of April. Now, if you're not familiar with this challenge, we get 7 layers that we need to incorporate in our layout. And the first one actually is to be inspired by this mood board right here. And as you can see, it's got a lot of yellows and sunny sorts of things on it. And so that's what made me pull these 2 photos here of my daughters, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them later. You can see that pretty sunset in the background, and these were actually just from recently, so it had that spring vibe for me. And then I also pulled these papers here. These are from Close to My Heart's In This Together collection. It was a COVID paper pack. And then another layer we need to include is hexagons. So I pulled out my stitched hexagons thin cuts, they're die cuts. And so that's going to be some of the things that I will pull together for my layout. So to get started here, yet another layer that I needed to incorporate was to use a stencil. So I went through my stencils and I didn't really see anything that I wanted to use. So I decided to make my own. So I took that scallop border thin cut there and I just cut it out of a piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to use it as a stencil. And I'm going to add some glacier ink to my white background page here. And then later what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer a strip of yellow pattern paper over the top of it. So that way it just kind of looks like this is a border coming out the side of that paper. But really I've just stenciled it on with some ink. And one of the cool things about this Craft IQ project is that you get these things that you are supposed to use in your layout, and sometimes it can be a little challenging to try to fit those in, but sometimes it makes you think in ways that you wouldn't have if you were just creating on your own. Like I never would have done this otherwise, and I really was very pleased with the way that it turned out, and I think I'll probably do it again. And so like I said, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this particular layer of the challenge using a stencil. And then I just, like I said, I made my own. And I like the way that it ended up looking. So here you can see I'm just using a little tool to grab some of that glacier ink, and then I am putting it on through my stencil that I had created there. And then I just moved it up and down my page until that border went all the way from the top to the bottom. I was a little worried. I did overlap a little bit to make sure that I had everything lined up correctly, and I didn't know if that overlap spot would kind of show too dark or anything. So I tried to be careful about not adding too much color in that particular spot, but it ended up looking fine. And there you can see that's the final result. So I love that. Okay, now off to the side there you can see I have also gone ahead and cut out a bunch of hexagons using my stitched hexagon thin cuts from Close to My Heart. So using hexagons was one of the layers of this challenge. And like I said before, I used the paper pack called In This Together. It was a COVID themed paper pack, and so the other side has things like masks on it and stuff about being quarantined. But if you use the opposite side of the papers, they're just these really fun, pretty spring vibe type of papers. And so I love that. Again, that's kind of for me going along with that mood board, being inspired by all the yellow and the spring feeling that I got from that. And so I've just cut these in a whole bunch of different colors. And right now I am dry fitting them around my page, and the basic idea is to make them go on a diagonal across the page. Now I am following a post that I saw on Pinterest from Scrapbooking Cards Today magazine. It was a layout that they had posted from 2013. And there are a couple elements on their posts that I don't use, but for the most part, I follow that sketch. So once I have a basic idea of where I want those hexagons to go, I use my T-square ruler and my Versamat to make sure that I've got at least the first one down straight. And from that point on, it is pretty easy to make sure that the rest of them go on correctly. I do leave a little bit of a gap between each of them, but not a whole lot of space. So I'll just finish adhering these down to the page. And then I am going to leave a little bit of that space down there blank on my glacier colored cardstock, because that is going to be where I add my journaling. But I think I've got enough room to put one more hexagon right here. And once I have all of the hexagons adhered down to the page, I am ready to start thinking about the title that I'm going to use. So these photos are actually pictures of my daughters when they were out picking up a litter from alongside of the road that we live on. And they just kind of got it in their head one day that it was something that they wanted to do. And my husband and I were really proud of them for wanting to do that. So I thought a good title would be Good Deed. Now I am using Close to My Heart's sapphire colored cardstock, and the cool thing about their cardstock is that one side is a darker shade of the color and the other side is a lighter shade of the color. So I cut out the word good twice on the lighter side of the cardstock, and then I cut out the letters to spell out deed on the darker side of the cardstock, and I cut 4 of those out. So I'll show you here in a second that when I stack all 4 of those letters together, they really do make a nice substantial letter, and I like how that's going to add some depth and dimension to my page. So I thought between, the 2 shades of the color, and then one has only 2 layers and the other one has 4, that added a nice difference between the 2 letters or the 2 words of my title. So that's why it's called Good Deed. And then I also have cut out a couple of hearts from vellum, because another layer for the Craft IQ challenge was to use vellum on the page. So I really enjoyed these hearts. I thought they looked really pretty. And again, kind of like that stenciling, if it weren't for this challenge, I probably wouldn't have thought to include them on my layout anyway. And that was just something that I really liked about it. And so that's one of the reasons I really like doing this Craft IQ challenge. It's a lot of fun. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to vellum and trying to attach it in a way that doesn't show the adhesive, it can kind of be a pain. So one thing that I like to do is to sew my vellum on to my projects. So I just grabbed a couple of tiny clear buttons, and I am sewing a little clear button into the center of the flower. And that's really the only way that vellum is stuck on there. So you can see this one here. And I just think it's cute. It's cute and subtle. And like I said, I wouldn't have thought to include it otherwise. Okay, I'm down to the last 2 layers that I need to work in. And one of them is the color silver. So I've pulled out these silver gems. And another thing is to add sequins. So I do have these flower sequins in my stash, and I thought I'd use the yellow ones to kind of go back to that yellow mood board. And I will take 3 of the yellow flower sequins and put them around my page, thinking about that visual triangle. And then I will turn to the silver gems and kind of scatter those around in the same areas. And except for adding my journaling in, this page is done. So I enjoyed putting this one together. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. There are a lot of ladies who are participating in this Craft IQ Hop. It's always a lot of fun to see how different people take the same 7 items or techniques and use them in very different ways. So make sure that you check out everybody's links down below and see how the other projects came together. So here I'm just kind of walking myself through to make sure that I've covered everything. I've got stenciling, silver, sequins, hexagons, vellum, and the mood board. I think that's it. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss anything. At least I hope I didn't miss anything. So here I'll leave you with a couple of still shots. Thank you for coming by today to watch as I create this page. I really enjoy reading people's comments, so feel free to leave me a comment down below. If you are not a subscriber already, I'd love for you to be one, so feel free to hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy crafting!